Page 318.
What's that?
To understand the details of the halachas that are completely uncommon, possibly they never happened, and certainly they'll never happen when Mashiach comes.
What's example of that?
For example, the details of the din of a pigul, of that sort. Okay, so to understand this, we have to back up a little. So last week we didn't have class. So this actually refers back to something which we spoke about in the previous siman, and actually there's one print of the Tanya where this is actually part of the previous siman. So in the previous siman, the Alter Rebbe says over there, the Alter Rebbe talks about how when you learn Torah and you learn halachas, so you're being mevar and etzutzas, you're elevating sparks. And why is that? Because every time you do a mitzvah, so the mitzvah you're doing with the physical object, and the physical object has sparks in it. You do a mitzvah, you're elevating the sparks. When you learn the Torah, when you're learning Torah, so the rule is that that when you learn about a mitzvah, it's as if you've done the mitzvah. So therefore, if you're learning about putting up a mezuzah, that's if you put up a mezuzah, just like when you put up a mezuzah, you're mevar the netzutzas, you are elevating the sparks. Learning of the halachas does the same thing. The Rabbi says over there, but how about when you're learning a mitzvah, you're learning the halachas, a mitzvah, you're learning halachas. So here, how can you say that you're elevating sparks? You're learning about something you're not allowed to do. There's no elevating sparks when you don't do something. It's an absence. It's not. You're not doing anything proactively.
When you're eating something, you make a bracha, you elevate something in the bracha also.
Yeah, but you're being proactive.
Right?
Here's a Sheva Tyson.
Here we're talking about an Avera. When you're learning about the halachas of an Avera, what sparks are you elevating? The whole point is learning about what you're not allowed to do, right?
Yeah.
Right. And then the Alter Rebbe says, okay, but it's possible. If you remember, this is Sheldon came up with this while we were learning. He says, we know that there's a rule that Yashav Yavar Avera, if a person abstains from doing an Avera, so he gets schar ki'ilu as if he did a mitzvah. So therefore, when you do an Avera, when you actively abstain from doing an Avera, meaning you have the opportunity and the desire to do an Avera, you don't do it. It's as if you did a mitzvah. So just like when you do a mitzvah, you're elevating sparks. So you do here also, you're elevating sparks. So maybe if you're learning the halachas about something which is relevant and applicable, about an Avera that you might have the opportunity to do, you might have the desire to do, so there also you can say that you're elevating the netzitzis, the sparks.
Similar to the Shalom Parim.
Yeah. However, what about halachas that are completely uncommon? They're Averas, which are completely uncommon. You're never going to have the opportunity to do them. You're never going to have the desire to do them. And here the Alter Rebbe takes it further. They probably never happen and never will happen. So what sparks are we elevating and what are we accomplishing when we learn these halachas? So the truth is, in the last siman, the Alter Rebbe says, yeah, it's possible that taka we're not elevating sparks when we learn these halachas. However, the Alter Rebbe continues and says, however, there's another thing that we accomplish when we learn these halachas, which is we're uniting with Hashem's chachma. And that itself is an amazing thing. But here the Alter Rebbe is going to say the truth is that even when you're learning about a mitzvah leisasa, a negative mitzvah, and even if it's something which is completely uncommon, here also you're elevating sparks. And we're going to find out how that is, what the process is. And the example the Alter Rebbe gives over here is an example of pigul. What is pigul? Pigul is that a kohen, a kohen, right? A kohen was being makriv a carbon in the Beis HaMikdash, and if while he's doing one of the four avodas, I'm not even sure which one of the exact halachas, I don't recall, but it's while he's doing certain parts of the avodah, if he thinks at that time that either it'll be makriv, that they'll bring the emurim, the parts of the animal in the mizbeach outside of the proper time. In other words, let's say he's supposed to up until the night, and he has in mind he'll do it tonight or tomorrow. Or he has in mind that the meat will be eaten at after the time when it's allowed to be eaten. So let's say it's a shlamim, which a shlamim is shnei yamim v'layla echad, it can be eaten for 2 days and 1 night. He has in mind it'll be eaten afterwards. That's called pigul. Now you realize, sorry?
Out of the place.
Sorry?
Well, out of the place. Chutz time or chutz.
That's not, chutz m'kayim is not pigul. That's machshavas, it's a different machshavah. Yeah. That's a machshavas makam. Pigul is, when you think about it, it'll be mechutz l'zmaneh. So, it's just, can you imagine it ever happened to a kohen who's bringing a carbon to the Beis HaMikdash? And what's he thinking about while he's spraying the blood, or while he's? So what's he thinking about? He's thinking that the meat is going to be eaten in the wrong time. What kind of a shugana koyin is this? Lahakist. I'm just
Be a korban toda, and he knows his family. Some of the
Why is he even thinking that? Why is he? Why is that even on his mind? There's no. You're not supposed to be. Why are you thinking about when it's going to be eaten? Why are you even thinking that? That's number one. So Bechlal, the whole halachas of pigul, and then Alter Rebbe says 11 prati halachas, and then he says, for example, prati dini pigul l'chaygav, the details of pigul, because when you go to the details, it gets absolutely amazing. I want to read you one halacha from the Rambam to give you an idea of how fantastic these halachas are. Alter Rebbe says that achila and haktara has to be a kazayis. So therefore, imagine if you're thinking that less than a kazayis, you'll bring it and you'll bring it in the wrong time, you'll eat in the wrong time. So that's fine, because it's less than a kazayis. However, what if you were thinking to eat a half a zayis, half a zayis outside of the azara, and half a zayis in the wrong time? Or you thought, I'm going to have half a kazayis, I'm going to eat after the proper time, and half a kazayis, I'm going to be makter after the proper time. Okay, so then it's kosher, because achila and aktara don't go together. But what if you had in mind achila? You had a half a kazayis, I'm going to eat after, I'm going to eat in the wrong time, and a half a kazayis, the fire is going to eat in the wrong time. Oh, then it's mistarfen, because achila puts them together. Now, what if you think about a half a kazayis, and then a few minutes later you think about another half a kazayis, also mistaref? What if you think a half a kazayis, I'm going to eat outside of the proper time? And then a behem or a chaya is going to eat another half a kazayis. Okay, is that mitztaref? What if I think about a kazayis, but I think two people are going to eat a kazayis? What if I think about a kazayis, but I'm going to eat it and take longer than the time that it takes to eat a kazayis? K'dei chilas pras. What if I thought during the zvicha that I'm going to eat half a kazayis when I was shechting it, and when I was throwing it, the blood, I thought that I'm going to eat another half a kazayis? Did you realize what's going on over here? I thought I'm going to bring a half a kazayis of the koimitz and a half a kazayis of the levina. Do they go together? And so, do you realize these halachas, which take up, and this is only one halacha in the Hilchas Pigul, these never happened. You had any kohen who actually thought these thoughts has to be put into an asylum. Is a lunatic. Okay, he's thinking, yeah, I'm throwing the blood, and I'm thinking that a half a kazayis I'm going to eat on Wednesday, and another half a kazayis I'm going to give to my dog to eat. Right? It's Mishagasan. And yet we spend time. But the bigger issue is not that we spend time in it, because at the end of the day, it's the Eibishter's chachma. The Eibishter decided that's what he wants, and it doesn't make a difference if it ever happened, ever will happen. At the end of the day, when I'm learning it, I'm becoming one with Hashem's chachma. But in terms of being mevared tzeitzis, in terms of being able to elevate the sparks, what sparks are there? It never happened, it never will happen, so there's no sparks over there. Three lines on the top. It's known, every Isser in the world, has a source, and a source of life in the klippes. It would not be possible for it to exist in this world. Without hashpa, the energy that comes from above. Which means nothing, this is a rule which by now, as we're finishing Tanya, we should be familiar with. Nothing starts here. Nothing starts here in this world. Everything that is here has a source in the higher worlds. Not only physical things, concepts also, everything has a source. If it didn't have a source in the spiritual worlds, it couldn't exist. This whole idea of a Chatzi Zayis here and a Chatzi Zayis there, if there wasn't a spiritual source, it wouldn't be a possibility over here in this world. Now,
But how do you explain it as far as being a possibility? It's very absurd, the whole thing.
is it a possibility?
Yeah, if he's crazy,
Theoretically, if it didn't have a, so if it didn't have a, Reuben, if it didn't have a spiritual source, it wouldn't be even a theoretical possibility. A theoretical possibility also has to have a spiritual source. Everything has a source. Nothing starts here in this world. Everything has a spiritual source. Now, some things have a source in Kedusha, and if it's an Avera, obviously, what's the source? It has a source in Klippa. So every Avera and every detail of every Avera has a source in Klippa, which is why it's a possibility here. And when the person does the Avera, they at that moment become a Merkava, they become a vehicle, a conduit for that specific Klippa. Va'afilu ha-mesalsel b'sayrei kahegav. Now even someone, how do you translate mesalsel b'sayrei?
Playing with his hair.
Playing with his hair.
Like this here.
like Shulam is doing right now.
Curling his hair.
What?
Grooming.
Curling his hair.
The case of, yeah, it doesn't mean curly. It means
Grooming. Like
grooming. Yeah, a man who's whatever.
comb.
Yeah.
Massage.
Yeah.
We know that Yosef Tzaddik was Mesalsel V'Sar.
Right.
Yeah.
So and that's not considered a positive thing. Mekabel chayusei beregazu receives at that moment when the person is being misalsel playing with his hair, he receives chayis in that moment mecholos aklipis. It says in the Zohar, and it's a specific klippa. With that klippa, which is the source of that avera. The hilkach, and therefore even the details of the prohibitions that never actually occurred. Be'elam hazagashmi in this world. And obviously they never will occur, as the Alter Rebbe says. If the details of Pigul never happened, certainly when Mashiach comes, there's not going to be a kohen who's going to be doing Pigul. That's obviously right. Makal Makim, nevertheless, Shor Shechayusam, the source of their life, He b'mitzias b'peil mamish, behechalos haklipais, in the hechalos haklipah. And therefore, when a person learns the halachas, you're being mevarer the nitzitzis in the spiritual klippas, in the hechalos of klippas. So that's what you're accomplishing. So you're not doing bitter on nitzitzis in this world, but you're elevating the sparks in the spiritual klippa, which is the source of this halacha.
Klipot is only bad, right?
Sorry?
Klipot is only for bad.
Yeah. Now the Alter Rebbe says, 1 second, there's certain averis which are only possible to be done by mistake. They can't be done intentionally. What's up? Avera can only be done by mistake. We know there's certain mitzvahs that can only be done by mistake, right? What's a mitzvah that can be done only by mistake?
What?
What's a mitzvah that can be done only by mistake? Shikha, right? Sefer Chassidim talks about a person who was maybe able to make the mitzvah shikha. He was overjoyed. He says, "This is a mitzvah I can't intend to do. The Eibishter must have been mizakem me with doing this mitzvah." But there's also, and I'll try to give you an example. If you look, what?
No, aren't there people that intentionally left stuff so that the poor people could come and
By definition, though, that's not shikha. The word shikha means that you forgot it.
Yeah, but
It's not true.
I guess it is.
Yeah.
Boaz instructed the
So that wasn't the mitzvah of shikha. He was telling her, leave some stuff. That was tzedakah. The mitzvah of shikha is that, what's the lashon of the pasuk?
The fact is, it was left there as
Sheldon,
shikha.
you understand what I'm saying. The mitzvah of shikha is when you forget. Okay.
I hear what you're saying, but at the same time, it was left there as shikha.
It may not count as
We can move on. I think we're on the same page. So, what's an aveda that can only be done by mistake? So there's a whole in Hilchas Meisers. There's a whole thing. We don't talk about Meiser Behema. So Meiser Behema, how's Meiser Behema given? So you take all the behemoths and you put them into one into a corral, right? What's it called?
You take the 10th one.
And then they go out. The mother behemoth is outside, and they go out. And then the 10th one, right? So, and you're supposed to count. You're supposed to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so what happens? There's a lot of halachas. The 9th one came out and you called it, you got mixed up and you called it 10. The 10th one came out and you called it the 9th. The 11th one came out and you called it the 10th. All of these different types of halachas, it takes up a lot of space. The different messing ups and what do you have to do in that case? Now, but by definition, that could only be done by mistake. So think about it for a second. If it's by mistake, it's not an avera. You didn't intend to do an avera. So you're going to say that at this moment you're being a vehicle for klippa and you didn't intend to do an avera. So therefore, it would seem that these kind of averas, by mistake mess ups, don't have a shirish in klippa above. So if I'm learning all these halachas, which never happened and never will happen, by the way, and there is no shirish in klippa, once again, what nitzitzis am I elevating? Let's do this inside. And also the details of things that possibly never happened, never will be. Mistakes. What?
It's also a possibility. It's a mistake.
Why it's not so shit?
I'm listening.
It's possible for that.
It's also possible.
But it's not a possibility. You can't say a possibility from klippus over here, Lochera, because klippe is when you're trying to be made it in the Eibishter. You're going to say when you do that, you're being a merkava to klippe.
I have a question. Mesalsel V'Sar can be also Mesalsel B'Peot? The same thing?
It's a shayla for Rav. Kigain, for example, for example, if you make a mistake, Shatav, V'Kara, L'Chi, Asiri, Chulo, you call the 9th one the 10th one. V'Kai Gavna. D'lei Shayich. b'mezid. It's not shaykh that this is to do this b'mezid. Li's klipa sheira alza. So therefore, it's not that klipa. There's no klipa over here. V'yuchal liyas, and therefore Alter Rebbe says it's very possible the kahai gavna that in such a case any b'mitzias bechalos haklipas. There is no source for this in the chalos of klipa.
What about Shia, where it wasn't shogeg, you made a mistake, but if you would have known the halachas, if you wouldn't have been thinking about something else, is that klipa or it has to be outright mezid?
Pshia is going against the Eibishter.
So it's not. So shogeg wouldn't be klipa, but Shia and mezid would be.
So the Tzemach Tzedek points out that the words Alter Rebbe says v'yuchaliyas. It's possible that any b'mitzias bechalas haklipa, that it doesn't exist in the klippas. The Tzemach Tzedek adds over here, and looking at this, it's the only place in Tanya we have this, right? That the Tzemach Tzedek is going to add somewhere, adds a little note to the Tanya. Tzemach Tzedek is the grandson of the Alter Rebbe. He says, Nidali, it seems to me that Masha Kotso, the reason why the Alter Rebbe writes v'yuchaliyas, that possibly it doesn't have a source in klippas. Alma, from this we see delay b'nidali. In other words, Alter Rebbe wasn't certain, he wasn't sure whether there's a source in klippas for this. Hainu mishum, because shashgoga is boyis menoiga. Because when a person does an aveira by mistake, that also comes from klippa, but not gimel klippas atmeis, that comes from klippas neiga. In Cain, and if so, yes, it's possible the yeshlam shedish bechalotz the neiga, they also have a source in klippas neiga. That's something that we've talked about in the past, that when a person does an aveira by mistake, it also comes from klippa, but it's not as bad a klippa. Because think of it for a second. The fact that you messed up when you don't mess up on things that are very important to you. You don't forget or make mistakes in things that are very important to you. So,
How do you transfer?
you're driving the car, but you lose your focus, and instead of turning on 14th Avenue, you went further, so you have to turn on 16th Avenue by mistake. But it doesn't happen that you're driving your car and you're not paying attention, so instead of turning on to 14th Avenue, you drove into the ocean. Doesn't happen. Why?
There's no ocean there.
That's one reason. One reason is because there is no ocean there. Okay? But, so, an Aveira, which is B'Shegig, is also, there is a lapse over there. It's a lapse of carefulness.
What's the translation? Kleep is like, it's in between par.
I wouldn't say par. It's a klippa which is not as terrible as Gimel Kudat Meis. Right now is not a place to go with it.
Good or bad? How could you be in the middle?
I know. It's a good question. We have to start Tanya again. You have to learn Perik Vav, and where Alter Rebbe talks about the difference between Klippas Neiga and Klippas Atmeis.
I think you're allowed to do Kleep.
Sorry?
What? You shouldn't do it. You should stay with it.
Stay away from Tanya?
No, Kleep is no good.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, actually, Klippas Neiga you can elevate. Not for now. But back to what Alter Rebbe is saying. So let's go together. Let's go for a moment on the assumption that Taki, it doesn't exist in Klippas. Alter Rebbe is going to say here something else. So again, a different answer, and that different answer is going to apply to everything. So the question was, I'm learning about something, never happened, never will happen, and I'm not learning about something I'm supposed to do. I'm learning about something I'm not supposed to do. So where is the Bir HaNetzitzis? So the first thing the Alter Rebbe says, okay, the Bir HaNetzitzis is because the sources are in Klippa. And the Alter Rebbe says, well, 1 second, but that doesn't apply to everything. That wouldn't apply to mistakes. So Tzedek says maybe it wouldn't apply to mistakes, but the bottom line is Alter Rebbe is going to give us another reason why learning Torah, even a mitzvah leisisa, causes biur hanitzaitzis, and this is going to apply even to things which are only mistakes. And what is that? Alter Rebbe is going to say, at the end of the day, even if this Aveda doesn't exist in Klippa, obviously it exists in Hashem's Chachma, the Chachma of Atzilus. In other words, what is the source of I'm not allowed to do this because that's what the Eibishter's Chachma, the Eibishter's wisdom dictated. Hashem's Chachma, from which this detail, in other words, this detail of this halacha emerged, L'meish Rabbeinu Olav Shalom B'Sinai. K'maimer, and this came to Moshe B'Sinai, as the saying is, Masha called Talmud Vasik Otzal L'Chadash Kulu, that everything that a Talmud is Mechadash was given to Moshe in Har Sinai. So therefore, every detail of every halacha ultimately is from Hashem's Chachma, which came to Moshe by Har Sinai, even if it's something which was Neschadash thousands of years later. And therefore, this includes V'chol Prati Ha'Ibayis Rabbi Yirmiyah, all the questions of Rabbi Yirmiyah. So Rabbi Yirmiyah was famous for this. Rabbi Yirmiyah was famous for asking questions which were bizarre. Rabbi Yirmiyah was an Ameira, and he's quoted many times in the Gemara, and he asked questions which are so far-fetched. He's known for this in the Gemara. It's known the Abayis Rabbi Yirmiyah. When the halacha would go, and then he would start asking, and what if this, and what if that, and what if the other? Like in Masechta Zvachim, in the one place, the Gemara, he asked a question, what if the Kohen threw the blood on the Mizbeach, and after he threw the blood, but before the blood hit the Mizbeach, his arm got amputated. So is that the sprinkling of the blood? To give you an idea.
It's a theoretical question.
What?
Theoretical question.
Yeah, but you realize how
You go deep in the question. Yeah.
how remote the possibility is that the Kohen throws the blood, and before the blood hits the wall of his Mizbeach, his arm gets amputated.
So it's impossible.
So actually, the Gemara, even in the first Gemaras that we learn, is the first Gemara I learned was Elam Metzias. So right in the first Amud of Elam Metzias, it has a kav and kav and arba amis. So he comes along, and what if it's 2 kavim and 8 amis, half a kav and 2 amis, a kav shumshimin? Remember this? Like that was his style. And in fact, one time he went a little too far. The Gemara tells us in Baba Basra that there's halacha over there that what if I find a bird, a pigeon, am I allowed to keep it? So halacha is if it's at 50 amis, within 50 amis from a shreivach, from a nest which belongs to someone, I'm not allowed to take it. If it's outside of 50 amis, I'm allowed to take it. So comes along Rabbi Yirmiyah and says, and what if the bird has 1 foot inside the 50 amis and 1 foot outside the 50 amis? I'm allowed to take it. And the Gemara says, Valda afkul Rabbi Yirmiyah maybe midrasha. For this, he was thrown out of the yeshiva. They said genug, and they threw him out. As they state, that's the Gemara says. And that's interesting. Is later on in the Masechta in Baba Basra and Daf Kuf Samachay. This is in Daf Kuf Gimel. Kuf Samachay. So they're in the base Medrash. It says over there, and they're asking a bunch of questions, and no one knew the answers. Rabbi Yirmiyah is outside because he was thrown out. So they started sending him notes outside. And he started responding with the notes. And finally, they said, after he gave a good answer, the Gemara says, he was readmitted into the base Medrash at that point in time.
There was no fun in Bet Medrash when he wasn't there.
It was the excitement of the base Medrash. When I learned in Montreal as a bacher, so over there you had the Rosh Yeshiva of the Yeshiva, the Chabad Yeshiva, was Rabbi Hirschsprung. He was the chief rabbi of the city. Now Rabbi Hirschsprung, I don't know if you know, he was Rabbi Baki B'Shas and everything. Yeah, it was a tremendous. But he was a Chassidisher. He went to Chachmi Lublin as a bacher, and he's a Chassidisher. And we know the Chassidisher have a different derech halimud than the Litvisher. The Litvisher will sit a whole year and they'll learn 2 daf Gemara, right? What? Sorry? For sure, Meir Shapiro. Yeah, Meir Shapiro was a short giver chassid. No. So he said that from here we see that back in the days they learned like Chassidim, not like the Litvisha, because they threw out to Rabbi Yirmiyah. Shortly thereafter he was let in. But between that he was thrown out and let in, there's 140 daf in the Gemara. See how quickly they learned 140 daf in Gemara back then. And if it would have been a Litvisha, Yeshiva would have taken them 20 years to learn that. There we go. Back upon him. So. And then there's the karchasoi chulu peridal dechun. I need to read this to you, this Gemara, for you to get a picture of what's going on over here. You wrapped it up. Wrapped it up.
Cool.
Yeah. So the Gemara says like this. This is actually not Rabbi Yirmiyah.
Which Gemara is this?
A Gemara in Chulun, Ayin Amud Aleph. Yeah. Boy Rava asks a question. So here we have the din. This is going to give the din of a peter rechem, right? A bechor that comes out. So it has to be the first one that opens up the womb in order for it to be considered a bechor. And if it didn't open the womb, so then it's not a peter rechem. Then theoretically the next one is going to be a bechor, the next child. No. So what if the person went and stuck their hand into the womb and wrapped the baby, the calf, in a sieve or betalisai, wrapped it in a cloth or wrapped it in something. So what's the halacha? So it comes out, is this considered a peter rechem? Because it didn't touch the womb on the way out, the walls of the womb. Okay, b'shil yasei mahu. What if you wrapped it in its shilya, in its sack? What do you mean? It's always wrapped in a sack. Now, Ella, b'shilya acheres. You took another animal gave birth, right? And you took that shilya from another animal, and you stuck your hand in, and you wrapped it with the shilia, and you wrapped the behemoth, and it came out. Mao.
You stuck your hand in, so that's the petarechem.
Sorry?
Your hand was the petarechem.
No, hand doesn't make a petarechem. And then it gets better.
Boy, he opened it.
Listen to this one. Bala'asu chulda.
Is it again?
A weasel swallowed the calf. Veitziyah, in other words, a weasel went into the womb, swallowed the calf, veitziyasai, and took it out. Ma, what's the halacha? Fragt die Gemara, veitziyasai, ha'afikte, so it took it out, so it's not a petarechem. No. Bala'asu. The weasel swallowed it. Veitziyasai and took it out. Vichnisasai, it went back in. Vikiyasai and vomited out. V'yatsam love, and then the animal went out. Mahu, what's the halacha? Is this a petarechem or not? What if you took two animals, two female animals, and you put them at so that the baby went in from this one and into the next one? V'yatsam
One animal to another animal?
Ma, what's the halacha? Yeah.
It's possible.
The day potter. The lav the le potter, so how about the other one? Does the other one a pater? You get the idea, right? So this is what the Alter Rebbe is referring to, vikar chase. You wrapped it up. So we have to realize that every single one of these halachas Alter Rebbe is saying is that all these halachas were given over to Moshe Rabbeinu Behar Sinai. And even that which Talmud Vasik Asad L'Chadash, and even in all these strange heichi timtzes, these strange possibilities, ultimately every one of them was given to Moshe Behar Sinai.
Extreme possibility.
Yeah.
So what's the answer, Tanya?
Forget it. What? That what?
About this,
You want to know what the halacha is?
yeah, with the weasel taking
Oh, I don't. You have to take a look at the Gemara. I don't know. Maybe the answer is teku. I don't remember.
Shabbos, you have a job.
Chulanayin Amud Aleph.
Go to Chulin.
Ki spashis chachma ilah. He beginnes saying Torah is an expression of chachma ilah, which is Ein Seif Hamelubis Rabbi Peil Mamish, and the infinite light of Hashem is within it. And because the infinite light of Hashem is within Chachma, Hashem's Chachma, so therefore there are infinite amount of halachas that come out from there. V'chol prat halacha, every detail of every halacha, whose seyar is a here, nimshach mechachma ilah, which emerges from Hashem's Chachma. The Yosad Brata. This is something we encountered in Igeres HaKodesh Siman Hey, a Kabbalistic saying, Abba Yosad Brata, which means that the daughter is sourced in the father. Just Begashmis Ne'elam Hazet, there's a special relationship between a father and a daughter. And that's because that's Nishnalshul, that comes from, and we know that just like here we have in Ne'elam Hazet, you have a father, a mother, a son, and a daughter. And as we said earlier today, nothing starts over here. Everything starts with its source in the higher worlds. In the higher worlds, the father is Chachma, the mother is Bina, and the son is the six middays, and the daughter is Malchus. And by the way, that's why the mitzvah, a pruah is to have a son and a daughter. That's what the Rizal says. Why? Because we need to reflect the structure of the way it is above, which by the way is the Yud Kei Vav Kei. So when you have a family, father, mother, son, daughter, there you have the whole structure of Hashem's name. But there's a special connection, even though that the Hey emerges from the Yud and the Vav emerges from the Hey, and then the lower Hey emerges from the Vav, but at the same time there's a special connection between the Yud and the last Hey, which is the father and the daughter, which is Chachma and Malchus. And why is that significant?
And what about the mother and the son? Doesn't that?
Well, that's obvious.
Isn't that comparable? I mean,
But that's obvious, because that's not a chiddush. Because the fact that the Hey and Vav are connected to each other. That's obvious that the Vav emerges straight from the Hey. But here we're talking about that the Yud and the Hey are part. And nevertheless, Abba Yasad Brata, which means Abba is Chachma, which is Hashem's Chachma. And Brata, the daughter, Malchus, is Teresh Balpa. As we learned in Siman Chavtes, Negeres HaKodesh, that it's called Eishes Chaya La Teres Baila. For whatever reason, there's a special connection between Hashem's Chachma, because where does Hashem's Chachma emerge? And where is it revealed? In the Prati Halachas of Teresh Balpa. And just like when you have the hairs on the head, I don't know if today the topic is hair today, right? Mm-hmm. So he says over here, every halach is a seir, is a hair, which comes from Chachma Ilah. Just like you have one brain, I think most of us, right? We have a single brain. And then we have a head which is covered with hair. How many hairs are there? And all the hair all emerges from every halacha is one strand of hair which emerges from the chachma, from the brain. So again, v'chol prat halacha hu seir, every detail of halacha is a strand of hair, nimshach mechachma ilah, which comes from chachma ilah, the yasad brata, from which comes the daughter. Mulubish ba, and within the daughter, within this halacha, we have chachma, and from there comes down this halacha all the way into our worlds. Till we have halacha the way we know a halacha. Okay, so we accomplished that. We know every single halacha. The significance of every single halacha is that it's a strand that comes from Hashem's chachma, regardless of how practical or relevant or possible it is. What does this have to do with Biur HaNitzitzis? We're trying to bring out how by learning these halachas we're able to elevate the sparks. What does that have to do? Okay, so let's do this first outside, and then we'll do this inside.
Outside. Okay.
The Gemara says, there's a pasuk that says, "Al me of the haaretz." What?
Try to continue.
Why was the land destroyed? Because Ozvu Teirasi, something because we abandoned the Torah. So the Gemara says on this Masechtas Nadarim, that what does it mean that we abandoned the Torah? So it says Al Shleiberchu B'Torah Tchila. That means that what was the sin? Why was the land destroyed? Eretz Yisrael destroyed? Apparently the Yidden learned Torah. They learned Torah, but they didn't Leiberchu B'Torah. They didn't make the bracha before. They didn't make Berachas Torah. Which is Pshatvar Pella. There's a famous Ran that talks about this, and the Bach talks about this also in the halachas of Berachas Torah. It was an academic learning. In other words, they didn't bother to acknowledge the Neis Torah. But in Chassidus, it points out l'chayre to say al shalei berchu al haTorah tchila. What does berchu ba Torah tchila? You don't say you say you make a bracha al haperes. You don't say a bracha ba peres. What do you mean berchu ba Torah tchila? So Chassidus explained that the word baruch we know means a hamshacha. A baruch means to draw down. And that's why the word brecha, for example, a brecha is a pool. Where what?
Brecha is a brook.
It's a pool.
A what?
A pool.
A pool.
Pool, right? Where water, where water gathers, right? Or hamavrich es hagefen is you draw down when you draw down the vine into the ground to
The bending of the knee also.
right. So berchu bat Torah means that we need to be mamshich elokus into Torah. Which is why we know the Yidden and Torah also are compared to Chassan and Kala. And the Yidden are the Chassan, and the Torah is the Kala. Which is interesting because we know the Chassan Kala. Chassan is the Mashpia, and the Kala is the Mekabel. You would think it's the other way around. You would think the other way around, that we're Mekabel from Torah. But in a deeper sense, actually we're Mashpia in Torah. Because we're mashpia, we cause the drawing down of the Eir Insaf into Hashem's Chachma, and we're actually, when we learn Torah, we're drawing a higher level of Hashem's energy, the Eir Insaf, into Torah itself. And we're drawing that into Chachma, which then draws it into the system of creation. Why is that important for our purposes? We know that the klippas are leeches. Klippa leaches energy. It doesn't have, because after all, that's one of the Yesodis and Yiddishkeit is Einod Mavade. Klippa doesn't have an independent source of chayis, of energy, of vitality. Klippa leaches everything from Kedusha. Now, in the world of Atzilus, Klippa can't get any energy from the world of Atzilus. The Kedusha is way too lofty over there for Klippa to be able to receive. So where does Klippa receive its energy from? So the words that Alter Rebbe is going to say, from the Achoraim and the Levushim of the Yud Sfiris of Bia. So you have Bria, Yitzir, and Asiya. And in Bria, Yitzir, and Asiya, there's also godliness, but it's on a lower level. And even there, from the Pnimius Kedusha, Klippa can't get anything from the Pnimius. Klippa can only get from the Acharon.
What's Mucharaim? What's
The Acharon, the backside
backside of what?
of Kedusha. Klippa can only be unique from Acharon.
How do you define the backside of Kedusha?
It's a very good question.
I don't know what's wrong.
You want me to speak in English?
No, English.
That's a legitimate request.
English.
That's a legitimate request.
English.
You know English?
I expect to be called out when I speak in Hebrew.
What?
I said I expect to be called out when I speak in Hebrew. Yeah. This is actually something that we've discussed. We've discussed on different occasions. Everything that exists because Hashem wants it to exist. If Hashem didn't want it to exist, it wouldn't exist. Everything is a product of Hashem's ratzon. Well,
Everything's Ratzon Hashem. Nothing but it's we sold it.
so let's take a look at our own ratzon, and then we'll have a little better understanding of the way it is by Hashem. There are different levels of ratzon. So, for example, as you know, I'm making a chasana in a few weeks. So, I'm doing a lot of stuff. This past week, a big avodah, getting out invitations. Bigger avodah than you think it is. Collecting the addresses and the email addresses and everything. Right? Big avodah. And there's hiring a caterer and a hall and a musician and a photographer. Everything. It's a lot of stuff going on. Do I want invitations? Do I want invitations? Do I have a ratzon to have invitations? Do I want a caterer? Do I want musicians?
The answer is yes.
Do I want a hall? The answer is yes. I want them, right? Really? Let's say you have a father who does all of the stuff for their child, and then the child, a week for the chasna, decides to call off the engagement. Does the father say, "Okay, I still want the invitations. I still want the musicians and the caterer and the hall. So they won't get married. Big deal." Big deal. Oh, it's good. It's good. Food, good. Music, good.
Nice party.
Some wine, good. Dancing, good. Everything's good, right? Okay, chasna kala won't make it. Okay. No, what's the answer to that? No, because I don't really want invitations. I don't really want the music. I don't really want the caterer. I don't want the flowers. I want my daughter to get married. Now, because I want my daughter to get married, a lot of things that go along with it. So I want them. That's called Chitzeni Saratza. Chitzeni Saratza means when I want something, but not for it. I want it for something else. I want my Pnimi Saratza. What I really want is my daughter to get married, and I want it to be a beautiful wedding. And these things are all about the wedding, but I don't have a ratzon in them of their own. Okay. Now let me give you another mashal. Let's say I decide to build a house. I'm going to build a house for my daughter. Okay. Building a house. And house is being built, and then comes along the government inspector with the code and slaps a notice on the house,
No work order.
a stop work order, right? It turns out that I went 6 inches too far off out of it, and therefore I have to rip out this entire wall and all the piping and the electricals and the wires, everything, and this whole section of the house I need to redo. Okay, so there I am now, with my shovel, undoing the wiring, undoing the electrical, knocking down the wall that I just built. Do I want to do that?
No.
What do I want?
You want the house?
The house
The house, right? But I'm doing this. Why don't I? I'm doing it. Why? Because I want to build a house, and this is what I need to do in order to build a house. But while I'm doing, I'm cursing, right? I'm cursing at every single, and I'm cursing the inspector, and I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. I don't want to. Then why are you doing it if you don't want to do it? Because you do want to. But that's called Acharon Deratzon. So we have 3 levels here. Pnimi Deratzon is what I really want. Chitzeni Deratzon is something I don't really want, but it's pleasant. It's fine. A musician is pleasant, right? Acharon Deratzon is something which I find disgusting, repulsive. I can't stand it. And I'm doing, but at the end of the day, it's Acharon Deratzon. I'm doing it because I want to do it.
I'm not sure.
But what do I want? The Ratzon is always the Pnimi Deratzon. But the Pnimi Deratzon then has a Chitzenius and it has an Acharon. You get it? Where am I revealed? In my Pnimi Deratzon, I'm revealed. My Chitzeni Deratzon, I'm not revealed. and I'm completely concealed in my Acharon Deratzen. In other words, to put it in simple words, imagine you walk by one day, you come down, you drive down the street, and you're paying attention. You don't want to drive into the ocean, right? You're paying attention to what's going on, and you see me with a sledgehammer, and I'm busy knocking down a house that I built. And you look at me and you say, "Wow, I didn't know that Rabbi Silberberg likes knocking down houses. Look at that! Look at that! Rabbi Silberberg enjoys wrecking houses and pulling up plumbing and wiring." No, I don't enjoy that at all. So what you see is not what you get. I am not revealed in that action. And by the way, it's not only I'm not revealed, I'm concealed because I'm doing the opposite. You're going to draw the opposite of conclusion of what the truth is. Now, you see me going and hiring a musician, and you don't oh, Rabbi Silberberg likes musicians. Okay, that's not the real truth. It's not really that I want a musician, but it's also, it's not. It doesn't conceal me. It doesn't represent me in the opposite way of what I am. And the same thing is by the Eibishter and his creations. And the Eibishter, there's the Pnimius, there's the Chetzenius, the Acharon. And Pnimius is where Hashem is revealed for what he is. Just like in Pnimius Aratzin is where I'm revealed. Chetzenius Aratzin is where Hashem is concealed. And the ultimate concealment is in Acharon. Where does Klippa get its energy from? Only from Acharon. Why? Because Klippa, if Elikus is revealed, Klippa can't exist.
If it's not revealed.
If Elikus is revealed, Klippa can't exist.
That's right. You want to
Where Elikus is revealed, the emes of Einod Mavade is revealed, there can't be Klippa.
You want to evade.
So where can Klippa get its energy from? Only from Acharon, where Hashem is completely concealed. That answers your question. That's what Acharon is. Okay. When we learn Torah, what we're doing is, as we mentioned, we're being mamshech, we're bringing down the Ein Sof into Chachma, and from there it goes into the whole system. You know what happens? That extra light causes that even the Achurayim Deratzen becomes too intense for the Klippa. The Klippa can't anymore receive energy. We're killing out the Klippas. And when we kill the Klippas, we're releasing the sparks from inside them. Birur Hanitzetzes. And that's the answer. We ask, what's the point of learning the halachas of Pigol or the halachas of Shkagis, the halachas of Karchasai? The answer is, how is it being mevar nitzutzes? The answer is, because this is the Eibishter's Chachma. And because by learning it, we're bringing in extra oir into Chachma. This is why, and when we bring the extra oir, we cut off the lifeline for the Klippas. They can't be mekabel anymore. Once when they can't be mekabel anymore, automatically that releases the nitzetzes kedusha that are within them. So we're doing birur hanitzetzes. And with this also in other places, Chassidus explains some Amari Razal, which is very relevant today also. So for example, the Maimer Chazal that says, which says, Hakel Kel Yaakov V'Yidai Midei Esau. Pasuk says, so Chazal tell us, Chazal Chachamenu Zechreinu L'Vracha, our sages of blessed memory. So Chazal tell us that when Hakel Kel Yaakov, when we're sitting learning Torah, then the Yidai Midei Esau don't have any effect on us. What's the connection? And now we understand. When we're learning Torah, we mamshech Elikus into Ein Sof, into Chachma, and that causes an entire Seder Shtalshlus, and that cuts off the lifeline of the Klippas. Then the Yadayim de Esav don't have any. And that's why also there's a Maimar Chazal which Rebbe also quotes in Geras HaTshuva. Chazal tell us that Vitar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that the Eibush is mevater and the biggest averis. Kil Yarayas, Fichas Damim, Aveda Zara, but he's not mevater on Bittul Torah. And why is that? Because Bittul Torah is fundamental. Fundamental to destroying the Klippas is learning Torah. Let's do this inside. Yeah.
Of not doing events.
So in a way, learning Torah is more important than not doing Avedis, because we're bringing we're causing the Berchu B'Torah. Let's do this inside. V'noida, 4 lines in the bottom. V'noida is known, 4 lines in the bottom of page 318. V'noida is known, Kiyanika sa klippas macharayim yitzfiris de kedusha. That where does the klippa get their energy? From the acharayim of the 10 spheres of kedusha. Ubefrat, especially milavushim the yitzfiris de biyah. Especially, it receives from the lavushim of the 10 spheres of biyah. The lavushim is the backside. Ubefrat the yitzir of asiyah. In general, it receives from the Bria Yitzira and Asiya, but especially from Yitzira and Asiya, Hamuravim Beklipis Kenoida. As is known, that's where do the Klippas begin to mix with the Kedusha? That is in the worlds of Bria, in Yitzira and Asiya, Sheini Kasam, and ultimately the Unika, the nourishment of the clip is Bebechinas Alavushim from the Lavushim. When we study the halachas, b'dibur machshava, with our speech and with our thoughts, misparshim u'mispardim ma'kedusha, the klippes separate from the kedusha. As it says in Tikkun Yizayir, v'rayim hemna, la'afrasha chulu, that causes the separation. Our learning Torah causes, it takes a knife and it cuts off the klippes. V'hainu k'neidem ha'masha amru, and this is based on that which is known and that which Chazal tell us, al shlei beirchu b'Torah tchila. Right? That the reason why everything was destroyed and why did the klippes gain control, which caused the destruction of Eretz Yisrael? Because we weren't beirchu b'Torah. We weren't mamshech there himself in the Torah. The idea of beirchu b'Torah is being mamshech there in seif. In Chachmei Ilah, hamlubash as behen, the Chachmei Ilah which is within the mitzvahs. When we say with Chachma, through Chachma, we're able to disencumber and be mevar and elevate the sparks, but that means ba'erin seif shaba. That is not through the Chachma itself, but through the Erin Saf, which is within the Chachma, which we have to draw into Chachma through our learning Torah. Bringing down the Erin Saf into the Torah, Nasa Yidei Diyuka Elyin Shel Adam. That is true. The spiritual source of our neshama, which is in the higher worlds, this is something we learned about in the first simon of Kuntres Acharon, that when we're learning Torah down over here, that causes that our Diyukana Elyon, that our Sheirish and Neshama in the higher worlds is also learning Torah. And when our Sheirish and Neshama is learning Torah, that is what causes the Hamshacha of the Erin Saf into Chachma. But Yuvan, what this will understand, Chiyuv, Kol Naran, the Chiyuv of every single person, every single Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Lahashlim, Kol Atayag, the Machshava, Diber, Maisa. Every Yid has to fulfill all 613 mitzvahs in Machshava, Diber, and Maisa. Which means, in Maisa we have to do every single mitzvah, but also Machshava and Diber, which means in Limud HaTorah. What does that mean? Shein Prati Halachas. Every Yid has to learn every detail of every halacha. V'tzriches Lavi Begilgul, and if not, we come down to Gilgul, Lahashlim HaTorah, to finish the Torah, B'pshat, Remez, Drusay. This is what the Arizal tells us. Every Yid has to learn every part of Torah. If you don't, you're coming back.
So what happens when Mashiach comes? How could you come back?
We're going to find, well, Mashiach's not coming till that happens.
So that means that...
All right, let me restate that.
What?
Let me restate that. It's almost about to happen, so Mashiach is coming very soon. What do you mean? We have
I didn't learn Tanya.
you don't know where your neshama was, how many times it's here before? You have to realize the reason why Mashiach.
I don't know
Ruvain,
now.
the Mashiach didn't come because you didn't finish this simon of Kuntres Acharon. As soon as we finish the simon, Mashiach's coming. That's what it's all waiting for.
But no one person can do all Taryag mitzvahs.
Okay, this is a discussion we've had, if you remember, in the past, a few times. In fact, if you remember, you told me you heard something from a teacher and I disagreed with you, you got angry at me. You remember that?
That means you would have to be a Kohen.
There we go again.
Okay?
This is repeating, Sheldon, this is repeating history. We've been through this.
All right.
It's not the Sheila.
Yeah. Yeah.
If in previous Gilgal you knew Korah Torah cooler, then you should know Korah Torah cooler. But how's that possible? But you come here to Masakin a deficit.
Ruvain, that's a good question. And that if you understood the concept of Gilgal, then that wouldn't be a question. And we're not going there right now. The bottom line is we need to understand that every neshama has to come down Gilgulim again and again to fix everything up and to learn everything.
It was fixed already.
Why? Every single person has to elevate every single one of every biur, the sparks from everything which is for the person. Of the 288 sparks which you spoke about, which is in the form of a complete person. Just like a complete person is made up of 613 parts, right? 248 limbs and the 365 gidin. So every person has the complete koima, a complete to elevate. So you have to learn all the mitzvahs say and about all the mitzvahs leisasa. Taryag bechinas klali yisapratis. Every single one of us has to learn these 613 aspects in general and in particular. Meaning, it's not enough to learn about Pigel. You also have to learn all the details of Pigel, which we spoke about also. Yeah. So what do we have until now? That up until now, right now, bottom line, whatever we're learning in Torah, we're being mevayin and tzutzis. We're elevating sparks, even if we're learning the halachas of Pigel. But how when Mashiach comes? What's the purpose of learning when Mashiach comes? When Mashiach comes, there won't be any more klippa. There won't be any more elevating of sparks. But when Mashiach comes, when the process of elevating the sparks will be finished, then there's no more surmira. It's only asay tov, higher and higher and higher. Lahalis to elevate our neshamas, maila adin soif up until the Ein Sof.
No more klippa.
No more klippa. V'gam b'shal leisus, and also when Mashiach comes, we're still going to be learning. Very interesting about the leisus. Think about it. Mashiach comes, we're learning about not eating cheeseburgers. But Mashiach comes, who's eating a cheeseburger? No one. We're still learning about it. Why? Because b'sharshan l'maylo, the shaydish of the shal leisus, shen gvuris kadeshis, is Hashem's holy gvuris. So we want to elevate our neshamas to those gevuras. We'll hamtikan b'chsadim, and when we do that, and when we do also the mitzvahs are the chsadim. So we sweeten.
We're both together.
We sweeten the gevuras with the chsadim, but amach mitzvasei will call on yachad to bring them together, the chesed and the gevura. V'alkin, and therefore our Torah kula nitzchis, the entire Torah is eternal, even after Mashiach comes. B'chlala b'prata, in general and particular. Shagam prati halachas shal leisa, also the details of the halachas of the 365 leisa. Heinin anafim maklalis. These are all just branches from the general, the general of the 365. Yes, the kulam sheidish lamaila. Each one of them has a sheidish above. Behei gvuris the kedusha, and the 5 gvuris of kedusha. The kemei shesal leisa atzman, just like the shesal leisa says shein lamaila bechinas hadam amachai yivarim the kilim dezah. So the shal leisa said they're like the blood that gives the life to the evarim. The same thing is also lamaila, the hei gvuris, they give chayis to the mitzvah say, and therefore when Mashiach comes, they will also be relevant. With this, we have concluded. What? Yeah.
Many pages.
What's many pages?
Just. Oh, I thought it's one. I thought it was one chapter.
Yeah. So we concluded. Next week we start David's Midas, and with this I told you before we started Kuntres Acharon, I said Kuntres Acharon is divided into 2 parts. You have the first 5 sections, which are very, very deeply Kabbalistical, and then the last 4, which are more along the style, much simpler along the style of Higaras HaKodesh. We finished with this. We finished the first 5. Thank you for lasting all the way through the Kabbalah. Next week we start David's Midas Karslu, which is a very geshmaka, beautiful idea, and definitely will be much more simpler to understand. And we'll start that next week.